Picture this. You're in Dublin, you're out with your mates, you're having a good time, you're walking down the street, you bump into someone, and all of a sudden you get viciously assaulted, and your head is used as a football. You get a real good kicking, and you almost go blind in one eye. Investigations are carried out, the perpetrators are caught, they're charged. You find out that they've came to Ireland for a better life from Algeria, staying in an iPass centre at the taxpayer's expense. But they get angry some night and they go after you and give you a damn good hiding. So what would you expect? Would you expect them to be deported? Would you expect them to go to prison for a very, very long time, given the viciousness of the assault that you suffered? What would you expect from Ireland's justice system? Well, you'll not be surprised when you hear the contents of this one. And of course, feel free to share this content with anyone you like. Take it and drop it into a YouTube channel, into a WhatsApp group. Do whatever you want with it. Facebook groups, Instagram groups, emails. Do as you please. But let's get the word out there and let's make people aware of who is lurking around the corner, maybe, of a night out. So let's look at this one. Violent disorder. Thug. It's bad when the mainstream media calls these people thugs. Normally I just do that. They come up with other names for them. But thug jailed after stamping on a stranger's head in Dublin city centre. Well, where I come from, that would be attempted murder. If I knock you to the ground and then begin a violent assault on your skull, what am I trying to do? Leave you with a bruise or two, or am I trying to do some serious damage? Omar Haddouche, with an address at Knockalisheen Centre, Meelick, County Clare, was before the court last week. And there's Omar Haddouche in all his glory, kitted out in a North Face puffer jacket. Those things cost a fortune. Wonder where he got that. Who paid for that? Pretty sure you don't need one of them in Algeria. It's pretty hot over there. But anyway, a 25-year-old man has been jailed for 2.5 years. 2.5 years, folks. And I believe there was a story circulating earlier on about a man who vandalized a Garda car. He's got several years for that. I think he got more time than this guy's got for a vicious assault. He joined others in stamping on a stranger's head, causing him to lose 75% of the sight in one eye. Dublin Circuit Criminal Court heard the incident arose after one of the males with whom the injured party was walking bumped into one of the men who was with the defendant outside the Savoy Cinema on Dublin's O'Connell Street. Two guys walking down the street, one bumps into another group, and then it results in an assault. One person's head is used as a football. Omar Haddouche, with an address in Knockalisheen Centre, Meelick, County Clare, was before the court last week, where he pleaded guilty to violent disorder on February the 6th, 2023, on O'Connell Street Upper. The most disturbing thing about most of these news reports is that in the time it takes for the assault, alleged assault, in some cases to have happened, and them actually getting caught or getting bail, to getting to court, to being sentenced, if they're even sentenced, can sometimes be years, longer than years. And in the meantime, they're out there freely roaming around in public. So this has taken over two years, almost 2.5 years, to get to this point. Garda Cahill Smith of Store Street testified that Haddouche was in a group with 3 other males at 12:30 at night. So 4 of them in total. The group came into contact with 3 other males outside the Savoy Cinema when one of them bumped into the males in Haddouche's group. Kicks were thrown towards the other group, who initially walked away. However, one of those men that returned punched an acquaintance of Haddouche in the face. There was retaliation with punching and kicking. It's not worth losing your life on the streets of Dublin over what was initially an altercation. Not that anyone died here, but I'm just saying you don't know who's carrying what. You just don't know. You don't know who these people are. Don't know who anyone is, period. No matter where they're from. Maybe it's because I'm getting a little bit older now. I'm not as volatile as I used to be. I don't get triggered as much anymore. And if I can see a way out of something without getting into an altercation, I'll do it, because not only could I come to serious injury, but I could do serious injury to someone, and maybe I'll end up in prison for a very, very long time. Game over. You need to defend yourself, you defend yourself. But if you can move away from something. Haddouche then removed his belt. Now, this is an interesting twist. He removed his belt, wrapped it around his fist, and joined with the others in assaulting the man who returned. He was punched and dragged along the ground and kicked to the head. The removal of his belt is premeditation that he's about to do some serious damage. He took the belt off and wrapped it around his hand, not to cause more damage per se with the belt, but to protect his knuckles from damage when he was raining blows down on the man who was being dragged along the ground. That's not a move he came up with on the spot. I'm sure I would say, in my humble opinion, he's done something like that before. Many times have you seen that happen? Most people would remove a belt and use it as a distance weapon. This guy wrapped it around his fist to protect it as he rained blows down on this other man. Because if you hit someone's skull with your knuckles, you could probably break your hand if you did it hard enough. Maybe he knew that. Maybe he'd learned from experience in the past. I don't know. I'm just speculating. The man got back to his feet, but Haddouche struck him with the belt wrapped around his fist. He fell again, was assaulted on the ground. Both the accused and one of his accomplices then stomped on his head. Haddouche then fled the scene with his mates, but it was captured on CCTV, and he said he acted in self-defense, but agreed his behavior wasn't acceptable. Really? Well, that was nice. You know, he agreed that that's unacceptable behavior, using my belt as an enhancement to the assault that I'm carrying out before stomping on someone. He agreed unacceptable behavior. Maybe that's a sign of rehabilitation. The injured man was hospitalized with severe bleeding, concussion, and serious damage to his right eye, resulting in the loss of 75% of his sight. Haddouche was also charged with violent disorder, but he pleaded guilty to a fray and received a suspended sentence. Haddouche's barrister pointed out that the incident had lasted 60 seconds. That could actually be, let me correct that, it's not clear there, but the injured man has been charged with violent disorder, pleaded guilty to a fray, got a suspended sentence. That maybe that's the injured party, because he came back and threw a punch after he'd been kicked. But either way, he got messed up bad. Could have died. Severe injury to his skull. Lost 75% of sight. And this is Haddouche. His barrister pointed out the incident lasted 60 seconds. He's from Algeria, had moved to Ireland shortly before, and was living in Citywest at the time. Citywest in Dublin, a place that the government have just bought for €150 million, along with a conference centre and 50 acres of ground that they're going to turn into a humongous iPass centre. At least 2,000 units in it. in the area of Sagart. He was later moved to tented accommodation in County Clare. And again, this is another example. You know, talked about Dublin's tent city along the Grand Canal. We talked yesterday about a woman who murdered a man, Lithuanians, living in tents in Uri. And now we have this guy who was moved from Citywest into tented accommodation in County Clare and ended up in a centre down there as well. Council said he's now a constructive member of society. Is he? While living in asylum accommodation in Limerick for the past 2 years, he's been working as a general operative and cleaner. He came from Algeria to make a better life for himself. Well, he started it off with a bang, didn't he? Or a boot, as the case may be. He handed in a letter of apology. He said he wanted to be a better person. Well, the bar set pretty low. So, you know, there's only room for improvement there. George Orla Crowe noted there was no apparent reason why the incident had happened, but said it was inherently serious and had huge implications for the injured. She said considerable violence warranted a custodial sentence and imprisoned him for 2.5 years. So stack that sentence up against some of the other sentences that we're seeing doled out to people for vandalism, for other much, much lesser crimes, or in the case of the story that I published this morning, I'll put a link to it at the end of this video. A man tried to abduct a child, dragged the child who was also visually impaired along the ground, bounced her off the ground, threw her into concession stand, tried to bite members of An Garda Síochána when they arrested him and spat in their faces. He didn't even go to prison. So, is there a two-tier justice system in Ireland? You tell me in the comments section below. Leave me your thoughts, comments, and opinions. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to share it, share it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. But for now, I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media. Over and out.